Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
On June 2nd, 1941, Lou Gehrig died from complications due to ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. He was 37. 1 year later, in June of 1950, the Muscular Dystrophy Association was founded to advance research and seek treatments for those affected by neuromuscular diseases. MDA's involvement with ALS began a few years later when Eleanor Gehrig, Lou's widow, sought an organization that was conducting research for the disease that had taken her husband's life. Eleanor worked tirelessly with MDA to promote ALS research and went on to serve as the MDA National Campaign Chairperson for over a decade. Since that time, the MDA has compassionate specialized care at 48 multidisciplinary MDA ALS care centers throughout the country. Today, MDA is funding innovative research focused on understanding the causes of ALS, developing and improving treatments, and accelerating clinical trials using MOVER, a unified national patient data hub. More treatments are in development now than ever before for ALS. And with your help, MDA will continue Eleanor Gehrig's legacy and transform the lives of individuals living with ALS.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 21st annual Wings Over Wall Street event. I'm Bill Ritter, news anchor at WABC TV Channel 7 here in New York, and tonight's host once again of Wings Over Wall Street. We're here virtually, not in person, but we are here because over the past 20 years, Wings Over Wall Street has raised more than $12 million in support of its mission to unlock the cure for ALS by funding critical research. Tonight's virtual program will feature leaders in ALS research and pharma discussing the pipeline of progress for new treatments and ultimately, this is the goal, a cure for ALS. Tonight's event was made possible thanks to our two presenting sponsors, IEX and Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America. Our first segment will discuss MDA's $500,000 grant for the Heli project. Now, the Heli project is the first ALS platform trial accelerating the path to new ALS therapies by testing several treatments all at once. Please welcome Dr. Merit Sokovich, Dr. Sabrina Paganoni, and Dr. Melanie Quintana.
The Heli ALS platform trial was designed to find new effective treatments for ALS faster. Why is this important? Well, time is of the essence for people living with ALS. When you have ALS, you'll rapidly lose muscle strength and lose the ability to do the things that we do every day that we take for granted, like walking and talking. This drives the urgency to find effective treatments because people with ALS live on the ALS clock, not the human time clock, and the ALS clock is a lot faster.
So what's different about the Heli ALS platform trial? Instead of testing just one drug, the trial evaluates multiple drugs at the same time. This means more opportunities to find new treatments in a faster time frame. So imagine having to build a new dock every time a different ship came to port with new treatment cargo. This is how traditional trials work. In platform trials, instead, there is one dock to receive all the cargo and connect all the treatments to their final destinations.
And because different treatments are evaluated and tested using a common master protocol, data from placebo participants can be shared. We can think of this as using the same crew to evaluate all of the treatment cargo at the port, rather than the traditional clinical trial approach of hiring a new crew for every ship. This sharing of information allows us to be more efficient and have power and greater precision to find effective therapies. This allows participants to have a far greater chance of receiving active treatment far less chance of being given placebo during the course of the trial. Furthermore, the platform trial is adaptive. It evolves over time to become even more efficient as new data emerges.
We launched the trial from the Heli Center in 2020, and we're now enrolling participants at over 50 sites in the US. We're already enrolling faster than any ALS trial has before. We're testing 4 drugs at once. They were selected using a competitive process by an expert team of ALS scientists who already selected 2 additional drugs to be tested very soon. This is how we're speeding up the clock for people with ALS.
This is such a hopeful and exciting time in ALS research. We're testing more investigational products at a faster pace, and we're making progress more rapidly than ever. I'm convinced that we are just at the beginning of a new era in the discovery of new treatments for people with ALS. This trial is the result of an extraordinary collaboration between industry, academia, and foundations like the MDA and our patients and the patient community. And it is a great example of what we can accomplish when we all work together.
A great example of what we can accomplish when we all work together. The Heli Project has great potential. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Doctors Sokovich, Dr. Paganoni, and Dr. Melanie Quintana. What a group of superstars for the ALS community. We move on, and we're going to take you back to the early 1950s, because it was then that Eleanor Garrick came to the Muscular Dystrophy Association to help raise awareness and funds to discover a cure for ALS, the disease that took her husband, the famous Yankee. Since then, MDA has contributed more than $1 billion to ALS research and care for tens of thousands of people diagnosed with ALS and their families. This May, MDA will continue our commitment to end ALS by hosting forums and events and opportunities for professionals, clinicians, and researchers and families impacted by ALS to join together. MDA will also educate, discuss, and engage to ensure ALS is in the forefront to drive advocacy, support, and research. And as part of ALS Month, MDA is hosting an online auction. You knew we'd get to the auction, right? The auction kicked off today. It's going to end on June 2nd. Please visit the website displayed on the screen and check out all the great items, including several great vacations. Yes, people are going on vacations again, and you can get good deals. The money raised, well, they'll go directly to help fund ALS research. Thank you. Lots of thank yous, but the first here is to CBOE for hosting the online auction. The event would not be possible at all without sponsors who care about the fight against ALS. Let's hear it for tonight's presenting sponsors. Our first presenting sponsor video features Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America.
When I was first diagnosed with ALS, I didn't expect to be knocking off the items off my bucket list with my kids in the Marine Corps. You have to live every day like it's your last and never give up. I'm Roger Brandon. I'm a retired Marine. I was medically discharged from the Marine Corps after I was diagnosed with ALS. I'm pushing my limits every day. I've seen too many people die in combat, and I've seen too many people die from ALS. So whether I'm fighting for democracy or American citizens, we have to talk and we have to find a cure for this disease. The legacy I hope I leave my kids is to never give up. As the Marines say, the only easy day is yesterday. I will not let ALS get in the way of me being there for my family. I'll see my son graduate high school, and I'll be there to walk my daughter down the aisle. I'll fight ALS as long as I can. It's important to stay positive and never give up the fight.
Inspiring, inspiring. Thank you, Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America. Now we want to hear from Brad Katsuyama, CEO at IEX.
IEX is proud to support the Muscular Dystrophy Association and Wings Over Wall Street, who do a great job of bringing together our community to raise awareness and money to fund ALS research and provide care for the families impacted by ALS. Our connection to these great organizations, it's personal. My friend John Schwal, who is a co-founder of IEX, lost his mother to ALS back in 2008. Tonight's event honors the late Pat Quinn, co-founder of the Ice Bucket Challenge, which has been called the greatest social media phenomenon in history. He had just turned 30 when he was diagnosed and sadly passed away late last year at only 37 years old. It's an honor to recognize Pat and his bravery and his immense contribution to ALS. And on behalf of the team at IEX, I sincerely hope you can open your hearts and wallets tonight and donate to the MDA in memory of Pat and on behalf of all of the families who suffer from this terrible disease. Thank you.
Heartfelt thanks to you, Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America, and IEX for being tonight's presenting sponsors. You know, ALS takes away the freedom to walk and to talk, takes away the freedom to eat, to breathe. There is no cure for it, and lifespan after diagnosis is unfortunately typically 3 to 5 years, although some people live for decades with this terrible disease. Because of your support, we are living in a time of unprecedented progress in neuromuscular research, and we'll be able to increase our investment in finding tomorrow's cures, all of which is a long way of saying something very short. This is your opportunity to support critical research to find a cure for ALS. Once we have that, we won't need this event. Let's hope. Let's hope. Let's start at $5,000. We do have a couple of generous donors that are going to get us started at the $5,000 level. We thank you to the Kreikler family for their $5,000 donation, and to the Dave and Sheila Gold Foundation for their $5,000 donation. Who else can help at this level? We're talking about $3,500. We have a $2,000 level. We have a $1,000 level, and I'm going to donate that amount right now. We also have $500, $100, and something called other. Whatever you can afford, please donate now. Again, I'm going to donate. In the next video, I'm going to put in a $1,000 donation. I thank every one of you for donating to this mission drive. It's so important. It's tremendous. Thank you all again. Our next segment discusses Dr. Stan Appel's MDA Human Clinical Trial Grant to expand the first study that demonstrated positive results leveraging patients' own immune cells to treat ALS. This is a big deal. Sharon Esterly will be discussing the trial's significance with Dr. Appel.
ALS has been a challenging disease over the years, as I'm sure everyone is well aware. One of the things that I think we've really come to appreciate over the years, largely through some of the work from Dr. Appel's lab, is the role that the immune system plays in the pathology of the disease. Dr. Appel, can you tell us a little bit more about the immune system in ALS and how it interacts with the disease?
It's my honor to do so. So the key to our therapeutic approaches is inflammation. And inflammation is something that is normally suppressed by the immune system. And it's usually done that through a process called regulatory T lymphocytes. These are protective cells that can protect. But in ALS, these cells are dysfunctional. That is, they're not able to suppress the inflammatory response. And as a result, motor neuron injury communicates to the immune system, and the immune system cannot respond to suppress a whole inflammatory process. So we're missing the
Yeah, these cells are the good guys, but
these are the good guys.
Jobs properly.
Yeah, but they're not functional. That is, they've lost their ability to suppress, and that's the major problem we found from the point of view of our approach to suppress inflammation. Anyway, we found that you can take the cells out of the body, the dysfunctional Tregs, expand them, and they turn normal because you remove them from an inflammatory process throughout the body. When you remove them and they turn normal, this was an opportunity to give them back to the same patient, what we call autologous infusion. And the goal here was to suppress inflammation and enhance quality of life for our patients.
So by autologous, you just mean it's the patient's own cells.
The patient's own cells going right in the body.
And that was programmed. So now they're going to work and do their jobs again.
Exactly. So that was the basis of our phase 1 study approved by the FDA. And in the phase 1 study, we were able to document in 3 patients that these cells were protective. However, the effect didn't last because we weren't giving them often enough. So based on that, we devised a second study, a phase 2A study in a larger group. That was being done in collaboration with our colleagues at Mass General Hospital in Boston. 12 patients were originally scheduled to be part of that study, 6 from Boston, 6 from Houston. We had the patients flying down from Boston. We took out their cells here, we manufactured them here, and we learned how to freeze and thaw so we could send them to Boston for infusion. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit, and only 3 patients were able to come from Boston, 3 patients from Houston, and the first 6 months was a double-blind placebo control. That is, we didn't know whether the patients were getting their own cells, and they didn't know if they were getting. And the second 6 months was to be an open label where all patients got their cells. And in the open label, we were able to increase the dosage of the cells to determine the beneficial effect. That study has just completed with 6 patients who were in the first 6 months, 3 from Boston, 3 from Houston, and 2 additional patients added only in the open label for a total of 8 patients.
Great. And so what do you think would be the best outcome for the study?
Well, because the study was so small and COVID-19 didn't allow this to be the complete study we had hoped for, what we're looking for is the signal to show that when the cells are infused, the patients get benefit. And we're optimistic that that will be the result of this study. And then the future is, let's expand the cells. Let's add other things that can stop inflammation so the cells can last a longer period of time. And we're optimistic that this will be an important arm in future studies and future benefit for our ALS patients.
Great. And so ideally, you'll make these cells stronger so they'll work better. And then you can also, or last longer, and then also even combine it with some of the other strategies that are being developed out there for a cocktail.
Absolutely. So what is key is the immune system responds to an injured motor neuron, but the immune system is not causing the injury initially to the motor neuron. So all the studies supported by MDA that are reversing the injury will be part of a therapy, and then the response to the injury is the immune system that we're trying to suppress the inflammation, and that combination is likely to be very beneficial.
This is great. Thank you so much, Dr. Rappel. I appreciate the explanation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, and thanks to MDA for their support.
What came across to me, and I'm far from a scientist or medical expert, but people are hopeful that there is some light at the end of this tunnel, and that's what comes across. Thank you, Dr. Rappel and Dr. Hesterly, for that illuminating interview, and hopefully there's hope. Right now, I'd like to recognize some of our sponsors that help make this event possible. Our presenting sponsors, IEX, Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America, auction sponsor, CBOE, our champion sponsors, Aegis, the New York Trivia League, care sponsors, New York Life, Real Chemistry, CNA, Staney, Friends of MDA, our USI Affinity, LJM Group, General Resurgence, Wolmuth, Mayer, and Deutsch, and Atrium Health Foundation. Thank you all for making this huge contribution. All right, our next segment features our Wings Over Wall Street co-founder, Warren Schiffer, who this guy tweets up a storm and really helped promote this event, and John Najarian. Warren and John are sharing their stories about the impact of taking care and losing a loved one to ALS.
Hi, John. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Warren. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And and also going to a place that is kind of difficult. And, you know, what we're going to talk about today is, you know, the impact of what it's like to have a family member who gets ALS and passes away, and the whole impact of what that experience was like. So thank you so much for sharing, you know, your heart with us. And
Thank you, Warren. You've done this for far longer than I have, and I applaud you and all the folks at MDA and Wings Over Wall Street for all the great work that they've done. So thank you, Warren. It's my pleasure.
you're very welcome. If it's okay with you, I'll kind of share my experience.
Sure.
So, like a lot of people, my late wife, Tony, was misdiagnosed along the way. And ALS sometimes is a diagnosis of exclusion. But when that diagnosis was given to us, I just remember I wasn't sure I can continue to breathe. It just was like such a heavy weight on my chest. And, you know, I'm sharing this experience with my wife, and we're just trying to make sense after like a tornado has just hit us. And it was really difficult. And I remember that night, you know, putting my head on the pillow and, you know, trying not to scream, and, you know, just so devastated and so lost. And I was very fortunate because my wife was amazingly courageous, and she was able to take this journey in such a way that it provided hope for me. And when she got the diagnosis confirmed again, down at Johns Hopkins with Dr. Rothstein, she right there made that decision not to be a victim of the disease, but to try to do something about it. And so that's when we thought about creating Wings and trying to raise money for research. So Tony's progression with the disease was so quick. So within a few months, she wasn't able to breathe very well, and we had been working with a pulmonologist, and she had to make that decision. She was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to make the decision to have a trach tube put in so that she could survive. And that was just again, a horrendous milestone of, you know, the fear of not being able to get enough breath. And it was really a difficult time. She did go ahead and make that decision with my support. And I ended up living in the rehab center for months, getting trained on how to care for her and doing everything that needed to be done with suctioning and maintenance and everything it takes to be supportive of someone who's in essence on life support 24 hours a day. We transitioned home, and I remember we got some really good advice from the lead nurse at the Eleanor and Lou Gehrig's Center for ALS Research at Columbia. And it was about your relationship, right? Our relationship. You know, what's that going to be like? And, you know, do you become the caregiver, the hands-on? Do you get other people in to do it? And so our journey was, Tony wanted me to be hands-on. She wanted me to be there for her. I don't think she could have conceptualized what was going to happen, you know, really. But we fought tooth and nail to be able to kind of be a couple and yet me taking care of her as well. And of course I needed help. And so we had a team of nurses, and basically we decided that I would do the night shift. And for literally almost every day of the 4.5 years that she lived with ALS, you know, we had our time together, our alone time, and made the best of our relationship. And Tony wasn't able to move after a while. She wasn't able to really communicate. Her voice went very quickly. And it really became down to very, very slight eye movement. And eventually that was very limited. And it's really difficult to watch someone you love deteriorate and get attacked in such a way. And eventually she passed away. Even on the ventilator, her organs started to shut down, and it just became overwhelming for her. So saying goodbye was also liberating her, and allowing her to have some peace. And you know, it's her motivation, that her hope that she gave me, that has me continuing to work on Wings for, you know, for this many years, this many decades. And you know, we ask people to donate to help research. I've just skimmed the surface, but we're talking about sparing families from unimaginable grief, unimaginable pain. Thankfully, there was beauty there too, but, and so that's my story, John.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Wow, Warren, that's just a beautiful story. Sad, yes, very. And you know, it would be great if Warren and I had stories about how it turned around, and how there was a cure, and how our loved ones didn't pass the way they did. But that's out there, and that's hope. My brother Paul was 4 years younger than me. I had 3 brothers. I still do, of course, but Paul passed 6 years ago. It's a terrible disease. It's horrible to watch your brother, sister, wife, mother, father, cousin, whatever, pass from this disease, because it is scary and painful. And that's why Warren and I are here. Not just to say, oh yeah, you know, we felt pain, we felt loss, of course we did, but to say that we've both been involved. Again, Warren with his wife starting Wings Over Wall Street, and me coming into it from some of the other fantastic people, generous people that have come in and helped get MDA and Wings Over Wall Street to where it is, to where we do have these great doctors and nurses and caregivers, these great resources that people can draw on, and hopefully sometime soon have something like what I described at the start, and that is a cure, either an arresting of it, or a cure. And obviously that's something we all pray for. We know it doesn't just happen from prayers. Prayers are fantastic, and we all welcome those prayers and support. But we're asking you guys to really look into your hearts, see what you can give that could help somebody not experience what Warren and his family and me and my family have experienced. As beautiful as parts of it are, it's horrible. And so if we can get to a point with your generosity to where we don't have to be here talking about something that will arrest the disease or something that will cure the disease, we would all be so delighted, so grateful. So thank you for watching tonight, for participating, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
To say that was beautiful and inspiring wouldn't be giving it all its due, and just so sad. This disease, and you see why people are inspired to go into this field. Warren and John, thank you for sharing that, and sharing your brother Paul, John, and Warren, your wife Tony. What great partners you each were to them. And it was just such a touching testimonial, and I'm moved beyond words. And thank you. We also want to take this time to honor the memory of the great Pat Quinn, who was the ALS Bucket Challenge co-founder, and he lost his battle with ALS this past year. He was just 37 years old. Here's what Pat's father, Patrick Quinn, had to say about his son. My honor to read this, and I'm quoting now. Watching Pat's journey fighting ALS, seeing his strength and passion as he raised funds and awareness for this horrific disease, released a passion to get involved I never knew I had. Humility, compassion, and emotion. Pat's strength made it possible to release these feelings, and I thank him for those lessons. Losing Pat was the most devastating experience of my life. Nothing compares to the heartache of losing a child that you dearly love. It shatters your very being. The ALS community lost the voice of a champion for the cause, and he will be truly missed. Pat being honored for his support of MDA through Wings Over Wall Street was one of the proudest moments in his ALS journey. The award was proudly displayed in his home, and he treasured it. It is now displayed in mine. Funding for ALS research through MDA and Wings Over Wall Street is something those impacted by ALS need desperately, and we are most appreciative. The father, Patrick Quinn, talking about his son, Pat, very touching words, honoring an amazing guy. Patrick, thank you for that. I know it's not easy. I have one Pat Quinn story, and I'll make it quick because when the pandemic started, I spoke to Pat on his email in June of 2020. And I said, you know, you're isolated, but you're learning to communicate still with people with his computer, and his voice, the false voice could come out. And he was so smart and so articulate, and he wanted to communicate, and he was able to do that. I said, why don't you help us? You have insight into what it's like to be insulated inside yourself. Help us, help the rest of this tri-state area figure out what it's like to be isolated, how you rise above that. And he said, you know, it's a lot of work for you to do that because we'd have to transcribe everything. And it's going to be a lot of work for me too. I don't know if I have it in me, but let me think about it. And he got sick after that, spent time in the hospital, and died last November. And that was the last time I talked to him. He was an inspiration. He was an inspiration. And I was honored to know him. On that note, if you have not already donated, it's not too late. Remember, your donation will help everyone affected by ALS, like Patrick Quinn's family, like Warren and John's family. Thank you. This event, by the way, made possible by an incredible group of people who help MDA in the fight against ALS. We want to thank you to the committee members for their continued time and support to try to unlock the cure for ALS. Our final segment of tonight features Dr. Gustavo Suarez Zambrano, discussing with Dr. Terry Hyman Patterson how they're committed to developing safe and effective treatments for those impacted by ALS.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Gustavo Suarez Zambrano, and I'm the Vice President for Medical Affairs at Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma America. And we are honored to be here virtually to talk about some important aspects of ALS and ALS care. I'm joined tonight, actually, by Dr. Terry Henning Patterson. She's the director of the ALS Center at Temple.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a real privilege to come and talk. Anytime I get to talk about ALS, it's a privilege. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
The first topic we're going to discuss today, it's about real-world data. This data is related to patient health status and or the delivery of healthcare that is collected outside of a randomized controlled clinical trial. There are different sources to collect this data, such as registries, claims databases, health surveys, and others. The real-world data is essential for developing a clinically relevant description of therapeutic management. So along this topic, I would like to ask Dr. Henning Patterson your perspectives on what's the relevance of the real-world data.
We're going to start prescribing a medication when it's approved, especially for ALS. We want some confidence in what we're doing. We want to make sure that we're doing our best by patients. And, you know, over time, the strength of conviction for you know, that prescription or prescribing that drug may actually improve with the real world data, may firm up the foundations that it was built on, and provide us with more discussion points for our interaction with patients. And now that we're accumulating data, we have additional evidence that this drug is really doing what it's supposed to, and maybe even more. Unfortunately, it could go the other way too, but we hope that the evidence that mounts is that the drug that we're prescribing is helping. Real world data can inform us. It really provides a mounting evidence and confidence for us to prescribe and information that we can give to our pals, our patients living with ALS.
Let's move on with a topic also I think that is very important for US clinicians and for the patients, which is the biomarker topic. Of course, with biomarkers in ALS, we are now looking into further evaluations, having tools with these biomarkers to help design and implement clinical trials, and also monitor the treatment efficacy during trials. Of course, in addition, the biomarkers are being developed for potential use in patient care in a more personalized manner. We believe that that's the ultimate objective. So this is an important and growing area of research, as these biomarkers are becoming increasingly recognized as perhaps an opportunity and a critical part in the evaluation of patients, in the evaluation of clinical practice, and in the evaluation of clinical trials. Have you begun to implement some of this biomarker testing in your clinical practice, or are you planning to implement some of this testing soon in your practice? How is that progress so far?
I look forward to being able to determine a treatment path for my patients, because I have a set of biomarkers that tells me what would be the best drugs. And I look forward to the day when I have a biomarker that I can track to tell me that I'm dosing right, that the drug is getting where it should go, and it's having the effect that I want in time for me to make changes if I need to. I think biomarkers are going to be hugely valuable in the clinic, and as well as in clinical trials, to accelerate our finding new drugs that change the course of ALS.
Thank you to the MDA for allowing us to be part of this gala. Thank you, of course, Dr. Henning Patterson for being here with me as well. And we wish you have a great event tonight. And hopefully we can see you soon in a face-to-face setting instead of being virtual from our offices. Thank you very much.
It will be nice to see you face-to-face instead of virtually, but this is where we are because it's safest for everyone. Dr. Gustavo Suarez, Zambrano, and Dr. Hyman Patterson. Thank you so much for your insight from the pharmaceutical aspect of all this. It is inspiring, even though it's depressing, because there does seem in everyone's expert opinions tonight that there is this maybe a light at the end of this tunnel that we can see. We just need to keep pushing and donating and doing research. And thank you for your insights. And thank you all for watching tonight. But before we go, I have one question for our committee. Hey, committee, what time is it?
It's time to cure ALS.
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 Time to cure ALS.
It's time to cure ALS.
Time to cure ALS.
It's 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 time to cure ALS.
It is time to cure ALS. Beyond time, it's time. What an informative and inspiring evening. I hope for you, it was for me. On behalf of MDA and the Wings Over Wall Street Committee, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting our mission to unlock the cure for ALS. With your support tonight, we have raised this much money so far, $191,750. It probably went up in the last 10 seconds. It's not too late to donate, and it is also not too late to go to our special auction, our silent auction, and bid on something. Want to go on vacation? Summer is approaching. If you're vaccinated especially, get out there and let's open up our cities and our country again, but do it with caution. I look forward to not hosting this event because that would mean there's a cure for ALS, that it's been found. 30,000 people of cases in the United States right now with people with ALS, 5,000 new cases every year. Do the math. It's a high mortality rate. We remember the people who aren't here anymore. And what we've done here tonight is part of their legacy. I thank you for joining us. I wish you a good night. Keep up the fight. What time is it? It's time to cure ALS. For all of us in this group, and for us here at Channel 7 Eyewitness News in New York, and all my colleagues who helped put this together, I thank you. We wish you health and peace. And as always, let's take care of each other. Good night.